National Signing Day is Wednesday, and Oklahoma is looking to shore up a defensive line that lost a lot of experience last season with this recruiting class. I'm Jason Kersey, joined by OU recruiting writer Ryan Aber. And Ryan, at the defensive tackle position, OU really went all in to bring some guys in. Start by talking about Kerrick Huggins, a guy that really gave the recruiting class a boost when it needed it.
Absolutely. In mid-December, the Sooners were reeling recruiting-wise. They had lost a couple commitments. They lost Jordan Mastrogiovanni to Texas A&M. They lost a guy that they had targeted from the start, Justin Manning, DeMarcus Granger's little brother, to Texas A&M as well. But they were able to turn it around with the help of Kerrick Huggins, a big-time defensive tackle with a very high potential, who had been committed to the Aggies for a while, took a visit to College Station, didn't quite feel comfortable, and that's when the OU coaches, including Bob Stoops, made a visit and made him decide that was where he was going to go. There is some questions about his grades. He's a risk guy right now. It looks like he's turning things around. The Dallas Skyline coaches feel pretty good about the direction he's going in, but he's still got some work to do to wind up here this summer. And if he does that, though, I think he's got a chance to commit pretty quickly. What do you think about his potential here?
Yeah, I think he's got a very high ceiling, like you said. Obviously, academic issues aside, he'll be a freshman. But Oklahoma lost so much. Jamarcus McFarland, Casey Walker, Stacey McGee, a bunch of guys that started and contributed. So he obviously would have a chance. If Oklahoma is indeed moving to this 3-4 defense like we've heard, then I think that the chances of him contributing much would be less. But that it would give him an opportunity to redshirt, get used to college life, academics, and all those sorts of things, and really eventually have a chance to be a really good player. Another guy OU got to commit fairly recently, Matt Romar. What do you know about him?
Yeah, he's, like you said, a guy who made his decision late, had some other options, was going to take a visit to TCU, decided against that after visiting Tulsa, then visited OU. He's a little bit smaller than any of these other defensive tackles that they bring in. Probably needs some time in the weight room, needs some time to bulk up a little bit. Actually played some running back in high school, which is something you don't see very often from defensive tackles at the Big 12 level. But certainly the potential is there, and also you wonder if he's maybe a little bit of a hedge against if Kerrick Huggins isn't able to make it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility, and he's another guy that with the depth problems, they have Jordan Phillips coming back, but he kind of failed to emerge, I think, quite how they wanted him to last season, sophomore, and then Marquise Anderson is there, but he's never really gotten on the field much, and so I think there are questions about him. So I mean, there's always the opportunity for some of these guys to come in, but this is another guy I would expect will get a little bit of time to develop. A guy who I think they're expecting to come right in and contribute is Trinity Valley's community college, Quincey Russell, a former Texas commit, a signee actually out of high school.
Yeah, he signed with the Longhorns out of high school. The Longhorns did have some interest in him out of junior college, but didn't wind up working out for him. His star value on services like Rivals has fallen down a little bit, but I think that's mainly because JUCOs almost always get downgraded a star because of they have less time to contribute once they get to the D1 level. But as far as Russell's potential, I think it's certainly there. There's been some questions about the way he works, but he's got the size, got the frame to perform well at this level, and certainly I think they're going to need him, if they need any of these guys, to contribute quickly, to step in and at least be in the rotation at the defensive tackle spot.
Yeah, definitely. I had a chance to talk to his coach at Trinity Valley, and he said that there's no problem at all with his on-the-field work ethic. I think the problems, the questions, stem from his academics. He's a guy who signed in December, was expected to enroll early, but then there was a mix-up with a class, and so now it's looking like he probably won't show up until the summer. But that coach, his junior college coach, made it very clear that this is a hard-working kid, a guy who's really motivated, especially to play against Texas because of Texas' decision to sort of sever ties while he was at Trinity Valley. Another guy who kind of came in late, Charles Walker, kind of a late bloomer. What do you see about him?
Yeah, I think Walker's a guy who maybe not quite at the level of a Quincey Russell, but certainly a guy who has a chance to contribute relatively quickly, whether it's being in the outside of a rotation this year or redshirt and take a year. But he's a guy that another guy that's sort of insurance maybe for this defensive tackle spots, where they need some guys who are going to come in and compete for playing time right away.
Yeah, Yeah, and we'll move on to defensive ends, a position that also lost a lot. R.J. Washington, David King, a lot of guys who really contributed well. And we'll start with the guy, three-star guy from Katy, Texas, coming off a state championship, turned a lot of heads, I think, late in the season, and even got some late Texas interest. What do you know about him?
Yeah, I think Matt Simone is just a guy who's come on extremely strong during the year. When the Sooners got him to commit early in the season, it really was an unknown factor. I think you looked at his size, you looked at his build, you thought that there was great potential there, but you hadn't seen it on the field. He showed it week in and week out this year, and it's probably their most impressive player on the field, at least at the front end of things, as far as OU commits are concerned. Do you think Matt's a guy who has a chance to contribute pretty quickly?
I think he does. I think they all do, all these defensive end guys. But I think also he'll have a little bit of a chance to learn and grow, because Gino Grissom switched back to defensive end at the end of the year and started the Cotton Bowl. You have Chuka Ndule back. So I think he'll have a little bit of an opportunity to grow, but I think they'll also expect a lot from him, or maybe perhaps early on. They still also have Michael Anoha, Charles Tapper from last year. So it's a fairly young, inexperienced group, and I think there's certainly the potential there to move in. Another guy that came in, and we're going to have fun spelling and pronouncing his name for the next 4 years, Auggie Binaya, a guy who was a first for a long time for Oklahoma, a guy OU flipped from OSU, first since DeMontre Hurst. What do you see about him?
Yeah, it's been a while since OU has gone after an OSU guy and got him to flip around. Now, there's some questions about Ryan Broyles during that time, but as far as going into Texas and getting an OSU guy, he was the first in a while, and it was a bit of a surprise because he was a big-time OSU guy, was pretty vocal about being committed to the Cowboys, and he's a guy with, again, a lot of potential. Maybe not a guy who has to contribute immediately with the depth that they're starting to build up there, but certainly something that they see big things for in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it's the same thing as with Matt Dimon, a guy that could come in and have a chance to compete early, but he doesn't really have to. They're not going to have to rely on him. Now, one guy I think that could come in and maybe contribute immediately is a guy that we hadn't seen play football in a while, DJ Ward, Lawton Douglas, Southmore player that obviously didn't get a senior season. Do you think he's pretty eager to get on the football field, I'd imagine?
Absolutely. Was just in the weight room pretty relentlessly during the season, getting prepared for this. He had moved from Lawton, where he turned in a great senior season, to Douglas, where he was expected to play and got a hardship waiver, wound up at Southmore, was denied a waiver and had to sit out his entire senior season. But he kept with the team there, worked out as much as he could, and we see a lot of these guys on the OU commitment list who have missed seasons. We usually for injury. We've got Dana Cavill. We've got Stan Von Taylor, guys who have missed and come back very strong after that. DJ is obviously a different kind of case, but you wonder if just the wear and tear of that season and not having it makes him better quicker when he gets to Norman.
Yeah, and another thing that makes him unique, he missed his senior season. Most of these guys, he missed junior, sophomore years, so that makes him unique as well. But I think he's a guy that before all this happened, he was a guy I think a lot of people expected to be able to come in and immediately be a contributor, or at least compete for playing time. And he's obviously a great player. He showed that during his time at Lawton.
And he's going to be on the field for spring football.
Yeah, he's already enrolled, and he'll be there for spring football, which certainly helps. So the defensive line, they certainly brought in a lot of guys to shore up that class that lost a lot. Signing day is Wednesday. For all the best coverage of Oklahoma football, be sure to stay on newsok.com and check out the Oklahoman every morning.